What if three warm voices became three egos that couldn't share the same elevator? The Doobie Brothers conquered radio with 16 top 40 hits while their founder collapsed from a bleeding ulcer on stage. Then came the replacement, who transformed their sound so completely, fans called it Betrayal. Decades later, they needed persuasion just to keep everyone together. This is how success murdered the very unity their name promised. San Jose, California. It's the early 1970s. While the psychedelic dreams of San Francisco were fading into memory, something grittier was taking shape in the Bay Area's working-class cousin to the south. This wasn't the sound of acid trips and cosmic exploration. This was road-tested, sweat-soaked rock and roll forged in dive bars and cheap rehearsal spaces. Tom Johnston had moved to San Jose to attend college, but the classroom couldn't compete with what was happening in the local music scene. He connected with drummer John Hartman, and together they began building something that felt different from everything else happening in California rock. When singer-guitarist Patrick Simmons joined, the core of what would become the Doobie Brothers was complete. Johnston later recalled those early days with genuine affection. "That's probably the most fun I ever had. I didn't have any money. I paid $40 a month for a room on 12th Street in San Jose. I had a VW Bug. We were playing everywhere and anywhere. Picture that image, a young musician in a cramped room, paying rent that wouldn't cover a decent meal today, hammering out chords on an acoustic guitar." Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It was in that meager setting that Johnston wrote the riffs and melodies that would become Listen to the Music and China Grove. Not in some fancy studio, not with expensive equipment, just raw creativity, a cheap guitar, and the hunger to create something that mattered. The band's identity was sealed when they adopted the name Doobie Brothers, a suggestion from a friend that acknowledged the era's pervasive culture with a knowing wink. It wasn't trying to be profound. It was authentic, self-aware, and perfectly captured who they were. Road dogs playing for the pure joy of the groove, not chasing celebrity or commercial validation. Their musical foundation was deeply rooted in rhythm and blues. Johnston cited the Three Kings, Albert, Freddie, and B.B. King, as massive guitar influences. This wasn't lightweight California pop. This was soulful, powerful music that came from somewhere real. When their 1971 debut album failed to chart significantly, it didn't matter. They were building something authentic and they knew it. Everything changed when Warner Brothers signed them and paired them with producer Ted Templeman. That partnership would prove absolutely critical to transforming regional bar band heroes into national superstars. The release of their second album, Toulouse Street, in 1972, marked their true arrival. The album climbed to number 21 on the Billboard 200, but the real triumph was the lead single that became an instant FM radio staple and the soundtrack to a generation's youth. That song, Listen to the Music, captured something essential about the early 70s. The harmony-driven chorus, the infectious groove, the sense of optimism and possibility. It climbed to number 11 on the Hot 100, but the chart position doesn't capture what it meant. This was the soundtrack to Open Roads and Endless Summers. This was music that made you believe everything would be all right if you just turned up the radio and let the music carry you. The momentum accelerated with their third album, The Captain and Me, released in March 1973. Templeman's strategic input proved invaluable. When Johnston had an instrumental piece he was developing, Templeman encouraged him to add lyrics, suggesting he write about a train since the riff had this driving, locomotive quality. That suggestion led directly to one of their signature tracks. Long Train Runnin' peaked at number 8 in June 1973, and it showcased everything the Doobie Brothers did best: tight harmonies, propulsive rhythm, and an irresistible groove that made it impossible to sit still. But their confidence and swagger peaked with the album's second single. Johnston remembered the moment of inspiration with perfect clarity. He'd written this hard-charging rock track, and he knew immediately it had to be electric. He roused drummer John Hartman late at night, declaring, "We've got to do this electrically, man. This is an electric song." They set the master volume on 10 and went for it, waking up the neighbors in the process. China Grove hit number 15 in October 1973, and it became the perfect counterpoint to their more melodic material. This was pure American swagger. Guitars turned up to maximum, drums thundering, vocals delivered with absolute confidence. The blend of raw rock energy and melodic sophistication allowed them to dominate multiple radio formats simultaneously. They weren't just successful, they were becoming unavoidable. By the mid-1970s, the Doobie Brothers had transformed from regional favorites into a commercial juggernaut. Their touring schedule was absolutely punishing, often exceeding 90 shows a year. Their records sold in massive quantities. The 1976 compilation, Best of the Doobies, would eventually reach diamond certification for 10 million copies sold. But their greatest triumph came from the most unexpected source, an acoustic track that wasn't even supposed to be a single. Patrick Simmons had written Black Water for their 1974 album, What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits. The label initially relegated it to the B-side of another single. But something remarkable happened. Regional radio stations, starting in places like Roanoke, Virginia, began flipping the record over and playing Black Water instead. The demand was overwhelming. Warner Brothers had no choice but to re-release it as an A-side. By mid-March 1975, Black Water sat at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. This validation of their country rock rootsy side, right at the peak of their commercial dominance, proved that the audience's connection to their authentic early sound was profound and genuine. But beneath the platinum records and sold-out arenas, something was breaking. The non-stop touring, the lifestyle, the relentless pressure, it was physically destroying them. Tom Johnston later confessed that the lifestyle wasn't really healthy. Stories from the road painted a darker picture than their upbeat music suggested. Johnston falling down on stage from exhaustion, Patrick Simmons smashing guitars out of frustration. These weren't rock and roll theatrics. These were symptoms of physical and mental depletion. Then came the crisis that changed everything. Johnston developed a bleeding stomach ulcer, a serious medical condition that had worsened dramatically under the pressures of constant touring. In 1975, at the absolute height of their success, their co-founder and primary songwriter was forced to leave the road. He couldn't perform. He couldn't tour. He was physically broken. The brotherhood had fractured not from artistic disagreement or personal conflict, but from the brutal reality that the human body has limits, and those limits had just been reached. Tom Johnston's sudden inability to perform left the Doobie Brothers facing an impossible choice: cancel everything and watch their empire collapse, or find a replacement and risk destroying the very sound that had made them legends. They chose survival, and that choice would divide their fans for decades. The band urgently needed a replacement lead vocalist and keyboardist. The role was filled by Michael McDonald, who had recently performed and toured with Steely Dan. But the recruitment wasn't smooth. Patrick Simmons recalled having to convince skeptical bandmates, carefully introducing McDonald as a sideman right now, but I think he's dynamite. The skepticism was warranted, because Michael McDonald's musical vision was fundamentally different from everything the Doobie Brothers had built. Where Johnston's Doobies were defined by hard rock, boogie, and raw R&B energy, McDonald's interests lay in soul and jazz, a polished, sophisticated sound that felt like it came from a completely different universe. For longtime fans who loved the denim-clad, guitar-driven brotherhood, what happened next felt like betrayal. McDonald initially hesitated to join, but when he finally sat at the piano during rehearsals and played an unfinished composition called "Taking It to the Streets," the reaction was immediate and unanimous. Simmons recalled, "And we heard that, and we all went, that's a song." That moment reveals the brutal calculation at the heart of their transformation. Faced with the collapse of their original identity, the band chose commercial survival over preserving the sound that had defined them. The album, Taking It to the Streets, released in 1976, launched the new era. For one uncomfortable period, Johnston and McDonald attempted to coexist as co-lead vocalists, but their styles were fundamentally incompatible. It was like two completely different bands forced to share one name, one stage, one corporate entity. The tension was immediate and unavoidable. The original members who had built their reputation on raw rock energy watched as their sound morphed into something polished, jazzy, and sophisticated. The audience fractured along generational and stylistic lines. Some embraced the new direction, others felt like the band they loved had been stolen from them and replaced with an imposter. In 1977, Tom Johnston officially departed. The co-founder, the man who had written their biggest early hits in that cramped $40 a month room, was now displaced from his own band. The original vision was compromised beyond recognition. And the McDonald era was about to reach heights the Johnston lineup never achieved, making the betrayal even more painful for those who remembered what the Doobie Brothers used to be. Despite the profound fractures and personnel upheaval, the McDonald-led Doobie Brothers achieved commercial and critical success that dwarfed everything that came before. The 1978 album, Minute by Minute, soared to #1 on the Billboard 200, holding that position for 5 consecutive weeks. The single that would define this era became one of the biggest hits of 1979. What a Fool Believes was massive. #1 on the Hot 100, 3 Grammy Awards including Song of the Year. This was mainstream pop culture dominance on a scale the original lineup never experienced. The song's sophisticated production, McDonald's distinctive vocals, and Kenny Loggins' co-writing created something undeniably brilliant. But for fans who missed the boogie rock energy of China Grove and Long Train Runnin', it was confirmation that their band was gone forever. The transformation was complete when the band appeared in a memorable 2-part episode of the sitcom What's Happening in 1978. They performed Black Water and Taken It to the Streets in a clean-cut, family-friendly setting. Patrick Simmons later acknowledged the episode's enduring legacy with dark humor. When people forget what the hell the Doobie Brothers ever did musically, they'll remember that we were on What's Happening. This television appearance symbolized their complete transformation from gritty bar band rockers to a highly accessible, marketable TV brand. But underneath the Grammy accolades and platinum records, the band was hollow. The resentment, the exhaustion, the corporate pressure to maintain a multi-million-dollar entity. It had eroded whatever camaraderie remained. The breaking point came in the early 1980s when Patrick Simmons, the only constant member through every lineup, change and stylistic shift, decided he couldn't continue. Michael McDonald recognized the futility immediately. He gathered the remaining members for rehearsal, and they didn't even make it through one song. McDonald recalled the moment with clarity. We all just stopped and had a look around the room. And I think it was me that spoke up and said, "You know, guys, I think this doesn't feel right. I don't think we're the Doobie Brothers anymore. I don't think the Doobie Brothers exist anymore." The decision was painful and complicated by cold business reality. The band employed close to 30 people. This wasn't just a musical breakup, it was a corporate dissolution affecting dozens of families. But McDonald maintained it wouldn't be fair to get up there and pretend to be the Doobie Brothers. Following the 1982 farewell tour, the ride was over. The band that had started in dive bars and cheap apartments, that had conquered radio with feel-good boogie rock, that had survived a complete sonic transformation and achieved unprecedented success, they were done. The irony was devastating. Their peak of critical success, symbolized by a song about foolish beliefs, served as the funeral march for the brotherhood that once seemed unbreakable. The story could have ended there, another cautionary tale about success destroying what it touches. But the Doobie Brothers narrative found something unexpected: redemption. In 1987, the band reformed, centered on Tom Johnston's return. This wasn't just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. This was a deliberate statement that the original boogie rock sound still mattered, still resonated, still deserved to be heard. And remarkably, they proved it commercially. Their 1989 album included a genuine comeback hit that soared to #9 on the Hot 100. The Doctor confirmed that the roots rock identity wasn't just viable, it was what audiences had been missing. This chart success provided vindication for the original members and for the fans who had felt abandoned during the McDonald years. Over the ensuing decades, something remarkable happened. The divisions faded, the resentments cooled, time provided perspective. Michael McDonald, initially separated from the reunited core, later acknowledged that the Johnston-led reformation was rightfully an effort to get back as close to the original band as they could. When McDonald returned full-time in 2019, it represented complete healing of wounds that had seemed permanent. The ultimate validation came in 2020 with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. The ceremony honored both eras, Johnston's boogie rock and McDonald's sophisticated soul. Both identities were recognized as legitimate and culturally significant. When discussing the old conflicts that had defined the 1970s, Tom Johnston offered a perspective that resonates deeply. I don't think anybody really cares about whatever happened back then. I know I don't. The anger was gone, the betrayal had faded. What remained was the music, both versions of it, and the recognition that their journey, messy and painful as it was, had created something that outlived the chaos. The Doobie Brothers proved that success and happiness aren't the same thing. Their story reminds us that even the tightest brotherhood can fracture under pressure, that commercial triumph can cost you your identity, and that sometimes what saves you also destroys you. But it also shows us that time heals, that redemption is possible, and that great music, in whatever form, endures. What's your memory of the Doobie Brothers? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories.